FBI investigator Bill Daley on what possibly went on behind the scenes. You know, during this 3-hour interview, Bill, do you think that was a make or break moment? In other words, to Charlie Gasparino's point, they're sitting on all of this evidence. They know exactly now that some of these emails were classified. They even know how many were top secret. And do you think they gave Hillary Clinton an opportunity to either sink herself or to save herself over the weekend?
Well, you know, Charles, I'll let you know is that interview was probably quite intense. I can only imagine the line of questioning. Don't forget they're armed with information they've learned over the course of the past couple of years, not just by their own investigation, but also the Inspector General from the State Department has come about. So they have all this information. They're also looking to see if there's any inconsistencies. Much like just was mentioned, is that, you know, it's possible to prosecute someone for lying with intent to the FBI, trying to deceive them, trying to not being cooperative. So in this case, I would also like to just back up and say everything that I've heard about Director Comey, and now I've only met him one time and I've heard him speak to FBI people. He is well respected. He's respected by people who work very closely with him in the FBI. And so I've always said is that what he comes out and says is that I will stay by. Whether or not people believe there is something untoward or something suggestive in probably not bringing charges, I believe that if there were, and because of his stature and because of his former stature as a former prosecutor, is that he would have.
1 second, Charlie. Bill, when you were an investigator, did you ever have a case where you felt there was that should put push toward prosecution, and yet someone above you decided, no, that's not going to be the case?
No, that's not been the case. Not a line of work that I worked in that wasn't certainly relevant. But I would also tell you is that I think it comes down to the U.S. attorney ultimately making some decisions when it's put forward by the FBI thinking that they have a case. In this instance, it sounds as though he did not move it forward because he felt as though there were no charges, there was nothing to substantiate moving it forward to the U.S. attorney.
Guys, let me interrupt both of you and then we'll finish this, but I want to bring in Speaker Paul Ryan has just given a statement on this topic. Quote, while I respect the law enforcement professionals at the FBI, this announcement defies explanation. No one should be above the law. He continues, while we need more information about how the Bureau came to this recommendation, the American people will reject this troubling pattern of dishonesty and poor judgment. All right, Charlie.
It's not that much of a political leap to think this. I mean, Paul Ryan's not some, bomb thrower. I mean, this is what you and I were saying. It's like, okay, he's building a case to indict. And I would ask Bill this. Why is it Jim Comey's job to determine what the prosecution should do? His job is to recommend whether there's a charge or not and let them prosecute. And if you look at what he said no reasonable prosecutor could win this case. Well, what is that?
Well, not only that, though, Bill, even in that same sentence, he went on and mentioned that he used the word intent, context, and past. Well, we know, that he started the whole thing off by saying it wasn't just about intent, but, there were other reasons you could be charged with a crime, felony, or misdemeanor.
Of course.
But also thinking about the past. Everyone's talking about General Petraeus, and if there's legal precedent already established here, and he refers to it, and it seems like to a lot of people watching this, you were at the FBI, that he overlooked it.
Well, listen, I'm not in a position where I don't have privy to all the inside information here, but I can only just tell you, gentlemen, is that I would assume that at this point, whatever words he may have used, the fact is that he didn't see a violation of a U.S. title, of the U.S. code. And so therefore...
He didn't say that.
Well, he didn't say that, but what
he said that he said there were potential violations. He said there were potential violations. What he said was he didn't think that it could maybe win in court. But my point is this, Bill, and this is where I get at, and I know Jim Comey, decent guy. I covered him when he was the U.S. attorney. He look at his past cases, what he brought against Martha Stewart and Frank Quattrone, the level of evidence he had against them.
Bill,
look at the evidence
here. Let me give Bill the last word here. Bill.
Yeah, I would just say is that, listen, we all don't know. We're kind of, quarterbacking this from our armchairs here. Yeah. We don't have all the details. We're trying to read some tea leaves into this. At this point, I feel as though it's done a full field investigation. Is that later on, if people come out, if people resign from the FBI because they weren't favorable to this, maybe that might tell us something. But at this point, I believe that he did the right thing.
It's in the court of public opinion right now, guys. Thank you all both very much. And, of course, Hillary may have bigger problems today.